Então, the worst things to happen in Magic the Gathering this year. 2025. Eu já estou mesmo a ver o que é que foi. Nem preciso. Não, pera lá que o som não está bom. Pera lá que isto não está com as colunas.
To happen in Magic the Gathering in 2025 was Marvel's Spider-Man. You know it, I know it, we all know it. We don't need to spend a whole video going, gee, gosh, Professor, what was the #1 worst thing to happen in Magic this year? I just can't figure it out.
Eu já nem
It was Spider-Man. Everyone knows it was Spider-Man. Mark Rosewater knows in his heart of hearts it was Spider-Man. Spider-Man. Marvel's Spider-Man was the biggest disaster of a set this game has seen in quite some time. Spider-Man was originally intended as an Aftermath-style mini-set.
Spider-Man, o problema!
Failure, instead of dropping it and moving on with their lives.
Olha, vamos dizer uma coisa. Tenho descoberto cartas de Spider-Man que honestamente são bastante boas. Já lá vamos.
In obligation to their contracts with the Walt Disney Corporation, scrambled to add another 70-some odd cards to the file so as to repurpose it as a standard set, delaying the release of Lorwyn Eclipsed, which was originally slated for 2025. This last-minute rush job brought us such all-stars as The Masked Meower, City Pigeon, and Hot Dog Cart. And of course, who can forget...
Mano, o Masked Meower é uma grande carta.
At Bagel and Schmear. With the fact that this was now a standard set, Wizards of the Coast had to somehow make it draftable, even though it was never designed to be. They even invented a 4-player draft format to try and make it all work. Unfortunately, and unsurprisingly, Spider-Man Limited was terrible regardless of how you drafted the set.
Tem uma fonte do Reddit.
Repetitive and unbalanced.
Sim,
Had they not forced this thing into standard...
Como é que ele se chama? O gajo da Daily Bugle.
And by default, pioneer and modern as well, but instead had it be just a standalone set that wasn't part of that chain, well, then it would have been a forgivable, if not forgettable, failure. I mean, a bad set is a bad set. They happen from time to time. Call it the price you pay for the many, many great sets that you get. But Marvel's Spider-Man was not forgettable, because the worst thing about it is it's gonna stick with us forever now. In addition to all of this, Wizards agreed to what turned out to be a licensing nightmare that led to an entirely different, mechanically identical set on Magic's digital platforms. This disaster was bad enough in and of itself to warrant its own slot on the worst of list, but I'm lumping it together with all of Spider-Man's sins, because it's inextricably linked to the decision to collaborate with Marvel. I talked about this disaster at great length in my prior video, point to thumbnail, but let me summarize it for you here. For reasons we can only speculate on, Wizards of the Coast could not secure the rights to add their Spider-Man to their digital platforms. Disney apparently wouldn't allow it. Maybe they asked for more money than WotC was willing to pay, or maybe they didn't want confusion with Marvel Snap. Either way, they refused to provide the rights under any circumstances. Regardless of the reason behind the decision, the result was what it was. There are 180 physical Spider-Man cards in paper, and there are 180 mechanically identical, legally distinct digital cards on Magic Online and Magic Arena. Most of those digital cards have totally different names, and all of them have different artwork. If you are someone who plays both paper Magic and digital Magic, you need to know both names. If you want to translate a digital Sultai Reanimator list to a paper deck list, you need to manually swap out all of your Kavero, the Mind-Bittens, for superior Spider-Mans. No, this is not a huge deal in the grand scheme of life, especially not in any individual instance, but nothing in Magic is a huge deal in the grand scheme of life. In the normal scheme of all things Magic, in the aggregate, this is one of the worst things that has happened in Magic.
Meu Deus,
que
absurdo. Bem, se isto é uma das piores coisas, nem quero imaginar as melhores.
Have to juggle two separate but identical lists of card names and card arts for as long as they play this game.
O drama, o horror.
Every time the physical
Spider-Man, o
is
problema.
Annoying or confusing for any given player, even if only for a little bit. That contributes to the ever-growing mound of bad play experiences that this decision is directly responsible for. And soon, this won't just be the case for one small set. As soon as we get Marvel Snap Heroes, a complete 280 card set,
Mas
there
esse
will
até está bom, nós já vimos esse set e até está ok. As cartas que mostraram estão fixe.
be more than 400 total cards in Magic that have one name in paper and another online. And then we're gonna get the third Marvel set coming down the pipeline. And that'll mean there's over 600 cards like this. And it seems like there's even more Marvel sets coming, but at least 600 cards that are all in standard at the same time, all of which are different online than they are in paper. The fact that Wizards of the Coast felt it was worth degrading the integrity and fidelity of the game for the sake of what? Getting to do a Marvel set is without doubt the worst thing that happened in Magic this year. But Spider-Man is sadly not the only
A integridade do Magic foi à vida por causa disto, malta. Acabou-se.
4 worst things to happen, plus one very dishonorable mention.
Agora é que eu quero ver. Quais é que são as outras?
Consist exclusively of bad things done by Wizards of the Coast, by the company that makes this game. If there was a bad thing to happen in Magic involving something else in the community, the list won't cover it. And remember that I'm not all negativity, because we have a best of video that you can watch if you haven't already, where I cover the
que a gente quer é ver o mal.
awesome things to happen in Magic the Gathering this year. We're just our newest episode of Shuffle Up and Play with the Odd Ones Out, Ranboo and Ken from One More Mana, where we celebrate this great game by playing it and enjoying it with each other. But either way, we've got a lot to discuss, and I've spent enough time dwelling on Spider-Man nonsense.
Eu, se alguma vez fosse convidado para ir a uma cena destas com estes gajos, mano, levava tipo um deck feito só com merdas de Spider-Man.
To discuss the rest
Sim, é o
of the
guru do
worst
Magic,
of Magic the Gathering
É exatamente isso que ele é.
2025. So let's begin with Magic cards all over my desk. It's bulk. I hate bulk. Ah, me bulk. Legally distinct large hulking person. Why you hate bulk? Bulk smash! Are you a winter in community bulk drink? I would like to very briefly discuss a dishonorable mention, and that is the continued degradation in quality of secret layers. And no, I'm not talking about curled foils or delayed shipping. I'm talking about the endless slop that this product line has become. And
Mano, eu adoro este counterspell ao ponto de qualquer dia me apetecer comprá-lo. Para mim este counterspell é das melhores merdas que eles fizeram. Isto para mim é épico. Este counterspell épico. Poder jogar isto era o meu sonho.
yes, I am using the word slop. It's in the dictionary now. Possibly because Secret Layers released Dwight from The Office, complete with bonus cards like Mindy Kaling. And you know what? At this point, it's a joke, it's a meme, and Secret Layers just turned into something not to be taken seriously.
Qual é o problema?
And overshadowing all of this is the shameful forced error Wizards has created in order to manufacture scarcity by limiting supply of Secret Layers, forcing people to wait in unnecessary lines for hours only to be told the layers of value have all sold out. These problems with Secret Layers are nothing new. It's been happening since before 2025. But it is ever present enough and dishonorable enough to warrant this brief mention. For shame, Wizards of the Coast. Go back to print to demand and try and have some self-respect. Funko Pop is circling the bankruptcy drain. Do not follow in their footsteps, even if your former president left Magic the Gathering to bring Funko Pops to where they are today, in the discount bin.
Ele acha mesmo que isto vai acontecer ao Magic.
Okay, let's wade into the muck. Coming in at number 5, we have the worst in-universe set of the entire year, and one of the worst in-universe sets in recent memory. I'm speaking, of course, of Aether Drift, where Magic the Gathering met
Aqui eu concordo, esta merda, o Aether Drift é horrível.
Erasers. Yes, that was this year. Aether Drift, despite being one of 3 in-universe Magic sets this year, felt less like a Magic set than Final Fantasy or Avatar did.
Este set é pior que o Spider-Man.
Totally immersion-breaking and anachronistic on the level of Cowboys of Thunder Junction or Murders at Markov Manor. The storyline was nonsensical. Did you read it? So Chandra enters the race to win Nissa her spark back, but then decides to throw that goal away for the sake of a transparently corporate attempt to create Magic's version of Baby Yoda. The overemphasis on the Hot Wheels aspect also significantly overshadowed one of the genuinely cool things about the set, which was the return to Amonkhet and Evishkar, formerly known as Kaladesh. It would have been cool to check in on what was happening on these two planes from 2017. This was
Sim,
also our
este
first
set é
dedicated
horrível.
trip to
Eu não gosto de nada
Morrigan,
deste set.
but you'd be forgiven for not having even
Zero
noticed you were
apelativo
on
este
this
set.
world, because its prehistoric jungle was paved over to build an interplanar racetrack. I don't even think a set with a bunch of vehicles had to have been such a miss in flavor. If the flavor had been more in the vein of Mad Max or something like that, I think a vehicle-heavy set could have worked great, but instead we got Magic's version of Mario Kart. Oh no! The set wasn't just a failure of flavor either. The draft environment was largely a dud. Green was disproportionately
É que porra, vou-vos dizer uma coisa, nem a merda dos boosters são apelativos, man. Nem dá vontade de comprar aquilo. Aquele azul berrante.
powered due to the high number of fantastic commons. There were more vehicles than the format
Este
could
set é tão
handle,
mau
and
que é o
there was
set mais
way
barato
too
de
much
todos.
reach. In Constructed,
Quase que
Aether
tenho que
Drift
vos
is
pagar
available
para vos
with
dar as
lasting
boxes.
impact. The most important card from the set is Stock Up, which also happens to be one of the few bright spots of the set. Stock Up is a legitimately great card, making Sorcery Speed card advantage powerful enough to be worth running over instant speed alternatives is a difficult feat to pull off, but R&D succeeded with Stock Up in a big way. The card is even a vintage staple now. But outside of Stock Up, it's slim pickings for constructed playables from Aether Drift. Now,
Certo.
granted, part of that is due to how powerful many of the other sets in Standard are. There are some cool Aether Drift designs, such as the two-color Gearhulk cycle, which could have been fun cards in a different Standard era. But in the context wherein Aether Drift exists, the set offers very little of value to any of Magic's constructed formats. All of this totals up to an utter failure of a Magic set. This was the first Standard set of the year and really set the tone for what this year would hold for the format, but more on that in just a moment. Because that is only the fifth worst thing to happen in Magic this year.
Man.
Coming in at number 4, we have the introduction of source
Então, mas esperem lá, deixem-me ver. Isto é do quinto. O quinto é tipo literalmente a cena menos má nesta lista? É que
material cards.
não sei o que é que vem em quarto.
Source material cards are what Wizards of the Coast calls ripping a
certo.
screen grab from an image of some
Epá,
other
sim, isto é
property
mau,
and
é.
pasting it unchanged onto an existing Magic
Nem vou
Gathering
tentar
card.
dizer que isto é
The idea
bom.
is that this moment or character from the other property is
Yeah,
similar
tá
to the Magic
terrível isto.
card that's getting reprinted.
Tá muito
Unfortunately,
feio.
source material cards are a terrible execution of this concept. The cards look sloppy, with barely readable text and comical art cropping. Take a look at this Final Fantasy Urza Terra Branford. Do your
Terrível.
eyes not hurt trying to parse the text box? What about Final Fantasy's Godo Bandit Warlord? Reskin
E o coisa Warrior of Light também é terrível, que está no Arena. Está
and
mesmo
as
péssimo.
Gilgamesh Weapon Collector. Imagine trying to read what this card does if you didn't already know what Godo did.
Pois
So
é, horrível.
many of the Final
Yeah, o
Fantasy
Joda
reprints
também.
already had crowded text boxes as Magic cards. As Final Fantasy cards, these wordy
Terrível
abilities are
mesmo.
migraine-inducing. The text on the Avatar cards are just as bad. For many of them, a child could point out better spots for the text to go. Look at Elemental Bond, depicting
Yeah.
Aang learning earthbending from top.
Mas não
Look at how
percebo,
much
este-
empty space
Esta
is
carta é ridícula, isto é ridículo mesmo. Esta não faz mesmo sentido nenhum.
sitting unused in the bottom third of the card.
Yeah, isto é
Same deal
parvo.
for Lifelong Friendship, the reskin of Eladamri's Call. Even worse, some source material cards reference the exact same moment that cards in the actual set depict. Would you
Certo.
believe that Mirrorwing Dragon is a totally different card from Ran and Shaw, rather than simply an alternate art treatment for Ran
Que é
and Shaw?
literalmente quase
Yes,
igual
they
a
have the same
carta.
mana cost and nearly identical art, but look, Ran and Shaw is a 4/4 while Mirrorwing Dragon is a 4/5. You
Certo.
fool! I genuinely think it could have been cool to use this set as an excuse to do a bonus sheet full of reprints that tie into moments from the show. But this is not the way to do that. They should have had artists, talented real artists,
Certo.
recreate these
Que tiraram
moments
print
so
screen
that
à
the
série.
art works with the Magic card medium rather than against it. That's my biggest issue with these cards. Not just that they look terrible, though they do. The
Man,
Avatar art especially has terrible
Eu até digo-vos uma cena. Provavelmente isto é a forma mais barata de vocês conseguirem a Great Ends. Genuinamente.
these cards. Not just that they look
Eu acho que
terrible.
esta versão, corrijam-me se estiver enganado, eu até vou ao Card Market ver isso. Esperem lá. Eu acho que esta versão da Great End está tão barata em comparação com a original que até mete medo. Pelo menos estava no início. Eu até fiquei chocado com o preço disto. Pena lá que eu estou em Yu-Gi-Oh! The Banyan Tree. Esperem lá. Nem estou a conseguir encontrar. Great Ends. Great Ends, da Avatar. Está neste momento a carta a 30 paus. Quanto é que está a Great Ends normal? A Great Ends de Commander Masters está... Olha, também está barata. Está a 30 e tal. É a verdade. Ok, afinal está tudo barato.
Terrible, though they do. The Avatar art especially has terrible resolution.
Afinal não
because
está ao mesmo
apparently
preço.
Nickelodeon or Viacom or Nintendo or whoever lost the original renderings of the
A
show.
Senhor dos Anéis
So
está caríssimo.
screenshots are all they had. Of course, Wizards of the Coast couldn't have done anything crazy like, say, hire their talented artists to recreate the art. No. This, I feel, is the worst part. We aren't making
está
art
horrível.
for our cards anymore. We're just printing screenshots. These cards don't just look bad, they look lazy. In
Certo.
Magic, we're not telling our own stories anymore. We're not even telling other people's stories. We're just sloppily pasting screenshots of corporate assets, many of which are used in other games, onto Magic cards and calling it a day. And don't worry, it's not ending there. Wizards has already previewed source material cards for the next Marvel set, which comes out in the summer of next year. Extinction Event is Thanos' snap.
mas aqui
Sure,
tá
that
ok,
makes
man.
sense. The rules text? Oh, go ahead and toss that wherever you'd like. Don't
Certo,
feel
cena
pressure
das-
to use the wide open black space
Yeah,
at
para,
the
isto é
bottom
tão
of the card.
estúpido.
What an absolute shame. And yeah, like I said,
Que
those
parvoíce.
previews come from Marvel Superheroes, a set that is not due out until summer of next year.
É
But
tão
we had a
estúpido.
major stream packed full of previews and intense corporate hype nonetheless, at a time when we could have been, should have been, talking about Lorwyn Eclipsed. Why is this a problem? Well, it's like corporate has decided to all but cancel preview season for Lorwyn Eclipsed. And we saw this earlier this year when Edge of Eternities was interrupted with an intense bombardment of Spider-Man hype and previews mere days before the set went live. Which is why the number 3 worst thing to happen in 2025 is overhype of Universes Beyond sets at the
ó.
expense of Magic's actual
É pá, ó,
in-universe
professor,
sets.
por amor de Deus, pá. Eu já não aguento ouvir chorar sobre isto, pá. Overhype porque as pessoas gostam dessa merda, Zé Manel.
Set in years, an in-universe set that is everything Magic the Gathering should be,
É pá,
and almost no previews will be held for it. Next to no content creators will be previewing or discussing
Ele não
it in
consegue.
the mere days devoted for Lorwyn's preview season. Now, Wizards of the Coast claims this is due to Lorwyn's release, being right after the winter holidays, interfering with the ability to do a normal preview season. Of course, the reason Lorwyn is slated for such an awkward release is because it was bumped for Spider-Man and then pushed into a now 7-set standard, basically crammed into a year that consists of a majority of Universes Beyond sets. So, you know, little sympathy from me on this self-created problem. And you know what? Content creators could have easily hyped up this set right after the holidays. The number of small, medium, and yeah, even large creators who would have been thrilled to be making preview videos between December 22nd and January 5th is, well, pretty much all of us. I guarantee you, if you ask your favorite Magic the Gathering YouTuber, podcaster, Twitch streamer, or article writer if they'd have been happy to hype up Lorwyn Eclipsed with exclusive preview content somewhere between December 22nd and January 5th, they'd have said, yeah, of course, let me make free commercials for you, billion-dollar corporation. And again, we just had a major hype stream for Marvel Superheroes, literally days before they announced that.
Eles sabem o que é que
there just
vale,
wasn't
eles sabem o que é
time
que
to
vai vender
promote
mais,
Lorwyn.
meu. É
Here's
só
a
isso.
thought. Instead of promoting the 2026 summer set a few days ago,
Eu nem percebo porque é que eles querem que estes sets sejam tão hypados, mano. Eu tipo, Lorwyn vai ter um preço muito mais justo à pala disto. Tipo, vai custar muito menos do que Avatar e Final Fantasy e o caraças. É muito mais barato,
promote
ainda bem.
Lorwyn Eclipsed and use that as the start of a major hype season promoting that set. Or maybe, and this is just me spitballing here, don't have 7 standard sets in a single year, forcing you to have Lorwyn in January right after Christmas. Maybe dial it back a notch and give these sets room to breathe and give us room to savor the flavor. Stop having Universes Beyond take up all the oxygen from in-universe sets either way. This behavior is exactly what killed Edge of Eternities. A fantastic, incredible set that should have gotten way more attention than it did. Instead, just days before Edge of Eternities pre-release, Wizards of the Coast launched a major media push for Spider-Man, with previews, articles, and parties all but erasing Edge of Eternities from the public's awareness. We should have spent the week leading up to Edge of Eternities pre-release reveling in this exciting set that pushed Magic to the very limits of the Magic multiverse. But no, we had to learn about Peter Parker and 14 other Spidey variants, all before Edge of Eternities was even in its own pre-release weekend. And this is why I could not include Edge of Eternities in my best of video, because the set was hobbled by the very company who made it. It was the best set of the year, in my opinion, but it was erased by Marvel and Marvel hype. The conversation about it ended before it could even begin. And though it was not technically Universes Beyond, this over-eager and over-early use of previews also served as the death knell for Innistrad Remastered. Do you remember Innistrad Remastered? It came out this year, but it came out in the middle of a full-on hype machine of previews for Aetherdrift, and thus passed through our local game stores faster than Spitfire, the leader of the Aether Racers. Innistrad Remastered was a cool and loving tribute to the favorite plane of many Magic the Gathering
Eu adorei
players,
isto,
but
pô.
sadly,
Isto é dos meus sets favoritos.
in the middle of those Aetherdrift previews. Pre-release for Aetherdrift literally started 2 weeks after Innistrad Remastered was released. 2 weeks! And because previews start about 2 weeks before the release of a new set, Innistrad Remastered was drowned in the hype for a set so wacky, it might as well have been Universes
Eu nem consigo perceber
Beyond.
como, porque Innistrad é bem mais fixe que Aetherdrift. Tanto que agora é bem mais comprado. Os preços de Innistrad estão caríssimos em comparação.
Failure to launch, and we likely won't see another remastered set anytime soon. I liked remastered sets, but this is probably the end of them, at least for some time. And you can bet Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles will have the full hype machine behind it. Unlike Lorwyn, and Marvel Superheroes will have the full hype machine behind it. In fact, the hype for that already began. All the while, great sets like Edge of Eternities come and go with little fan...
O ponto é este. A malta que joga Magic tem que perceber que se esses universos são hypados é porque vendem. Se vendem é porque as pessoas os compram. Se a malta que joga Magic está a comprar mais Universes Beyond do que propriamente in Universe Set, é porque os Universes Beyond resultam melhor, meu. É só isso. E para mim, ouro sobre azul, mais sets in Universe ficam para o meu bolso, que não tenho que andar a gastar rios de guito. Eu em Avatar não gastei dinheiro nenhum. Caguei em Avatar de alto mesmo.
Fair or attention. Again, it's why I simply could not justify listing Edge.
Olha, fui à pré-release e comprei 3 cartas. Foi o que eu fiz de Avatar.
Best things to happen this year. It's a great set, my favorite set of the year, and yet it was not nearly as significant of a release as any of the Universes Beyond sets that we received this year. There is no reason to be previewing cards from a set that is 6 months away. There is no reason to be previewing the next set during or days before the pre-release of a current set. The fact that this year was filled with it was one of the worst things to happen. We should be enjoying where we are when we are there, not sprinting ahead to whatever the next thing is, let alone the next.
Não, pá, não, Nerf, não me apetece, mano. Esse jogo, pá, foi giro, mas nhé. O que é o segundo?
Alright, we've made it. We're up to the second worst thing to happen in Magic the Gathering in 2025, and like abusive Universes Beyond preview seasons, this is another problem that I suspect is only just getting started. And that is the now 3-year 6-set standard. It is more than overwhelmingly absurd. It is a disaster for the format and for the game. We have enough data to make this claim now. Standard has been a dumpster fire all year long, and that is not good for anyone. Months of Izzet prowess with Corey Steelcutter. Even more months of the Vivi Cauldron monstrosity. And then, just a couple weeks ago, Izzet Lessons dominated the World Championship. That's nearly a full year where the best thing to do in Standard by a mile was put 4 copies of Spire Bluff Canal in your deck.
Porra, bro.
I mentioned this statistic in my video on the death of Pioneer, but I want to reiterate it here.
Imagina, mas isto é parte do jogo, faz parte da meta, bro.
At the current set release
Epá,
rate
são
and
cancerígenas,
reality
chama-se o que é
window,
que isso há de
the
fazer, bro.
smallest Standard can possibly be now is bigger than the largest Standard could ever
Esta
be
malta
for
ficou mesmo
decades
agarrada ao
in the world
passado do
system.
Magic, bro. Eu
Back
fico
when
maluco.
Standard consisted of 2 4-set years, Standard maxed out at 8 sets. At the time of rotation, you had just 5 sets total in Standard. Compare that to rotation this year. Standard consisted of 11 sets, more than twice as many as the smallest Standard formats used to have. And it's about to get worse because we're about to shift to 7 Standard sets in a year. Are you ready for that math? Once we've had 2 years of 7 sets Standard, which we will have,
14.
here's what Standard will look like at the time of rotation. 2 years of 7 sets each, plus the first set of the new year, plus Foundations. A
15.
grand total of 16 sets. And this will be the smallest that Standard can be, the smallest. Quite literally twice the size of the maximum Standard size of
É
eight sets
guito,
under
estão a
the
dar
new
guito.
system. What does this do to the format? Well, have you seen what Standard has looked like over the last year? This year has seen an astounding 10 cards banned in Standard. The most
Tá
ever
bom, pá.
banned in a single calendar year. This isn't just
Mais
one deck
cartas.
getting hit by the ban hammer. We've seen cards banned from aggro decks, mid-range decks, combo decks, ramp decks,
Tá
control
certo.
decks, you name it. Worse than the bans we've had are the bans we haven't had. Everyone knew Vivi would be banned for at least 3 months prior to its actual exit from the format. Why would anyone buy into Standard under those circumstances? And it went on for 3 months. It feels like every set produces another
sim.
broken card that R&D was too
Commander a mesma
overextended
coisa.
by the relentless release schedule to catch in development. And then, because of the rigid ban windows, we get stuck with lame duck Standard formats that no one wants to play. And all of this happened during a time when Wizards of the Coast has stated time and time again that they want to re-energize Standard. Sorry, WotC, but your actions are having the exact opposite effect. If 3-year 6-set Standard is absurd, 3-year 7-set Standard is absolutely insane. Standard is a disaster. The release schedule is a disaster. Preview season is a disaster. Players are overwhelmed, exhausted, and non-commander formats are all in flames.
Menos o
Longtime
Commander,
players
que é o
quitting
único
the game,
formato que
moving
interessa
over to
neste rádio.
Riftbound, which of course is accepting them with open arms.
Riftbound.
This is not sustainable. It just isn't. We are careening towards the edge of what players can keep up with, and we've shown no signs of slowing down. Who knows? Maybe like Wile E. Coyote, we crossed over the edge.
Eu acho que a malta
long
está a fugir do
time
standard
ago,
para
and
vir
been
para o
running
Commander,
across
que é o
Thin Air
real
ever since,
interesse.
sustained only by our own momentum and the gravity-defying logic straight out of a cartoon. It's only a matter of time before the bubble bursts and Magic comes crashing down
Epá,
to
isto
earth.
parece a
Just
bolha
hope the game can
imobiliária.
survive its inevitable
Está
end.
quase a estourar, malta. Confiem, Magic está quase a arrebentar.
And of course, the worst thing to happen this year is Spider-Man. But I said that at the start of the video, and you already knew it before clicking on the video. But hey, what about you? What do you think are the worst things to happen in Magic this year? Besides
agora
Spider-Man,
esperamos
do you
pelo próximo ano,
disagree with
malta.
any of my picks besides Spider-Man? Let me know in the comments below.
Tá a falar por
And
todos
be
os jogadores.
sure to watch our best things to happen in Magic the Gathering 2025 video, as well as our newest
Olha
episode
isso,
of
Mighty.
Shuffle Up and Play with the odd ones out, Ranboo and Ken from with Lorwyn.
Tá bom, sim senhor, pá. O Lorwyn vai ser fixe, malta. É a única coisa que eu tenho para dizer. Portanto, olha, começamos o ano bem. Começamos o ano de Magic bem, com Lorwyn Eclipsed. Acho que vai ser bacana, vai ser um bom set. Pá, o resto logo se vê. Logo se vê quando o set sair, pá. Eu não gosto de falar antes do tempo. Acho parvo.